The quaint New England town rested quietly beneath a somber, leaden sky, where clouds hung low, seemingly weighed down by the impending arrival of a snowstorm. Jack perched on the bus, his gaze fixed on the window as the skeletal trees slipped by, their outlines fading into the soft glow of the waning afternoon light. The harsh winter cold seeped not only into his skin but also into his very essence, evoking a familiar, unwelcome discomfort at the prospect of returning home. Upon crossing the threshold, Jack felt an unsettling presence in the air. The dwelling he had once cherished now resembled a hollow husk, so silent that the sound of his shoes creaking on the wooden floorboards echoed in the stillness. In the kitchen, his mother, Sarah, faced away from him, her back a silent barrier between them. The gentle yellow illumination from the overhead light outlined her figure with striking clarity, creating an image that felt both known and oddly foreign. "You're home," Jack said, his voice slicing through the stillness. Sarah faced him, a subtle smile gracing her lips, yet Jack couldn't overlook the depth of weariness in her eyes, heavy and shadowed, as though sleep had eluded her for days. "Hello, darling," she responded, her voice gentle yet laced with an undercurrent of unease. "I never expected to see you return this quickly." Jack's brow furrowed. He had anticipated a different kind of response. While most mothers would have embraced their son with joy upon his return from a holiday break, Sarah's expression suggested he had unwittingly interrupted a carefully concealed scheme. "Is everything all right, Mum?" Jack inquired, maintaining a laid-back demeanor, even as a sharp unease began to swell within him. Sarah shook her head, her gaze drifting back to the sink as she scrubbed at dishes that seemed hardly in need of such attention. "No, nothing at all. I find myself in a state of astonished. That's it." Though her words appeared straightforward, the way she averted his gaze revealed a more complex narrative. Jack surveyed his surroundings, a sense of unease swelling within him. Everything in the house appeared to be in its customary arrangement, yet an elusive something lingered. Disengaged. He was unable to articulate the sensation, yet the stillness, coupled with the transient glance in his mother's eyes, set every nerve in his body aflame with unease. "Are you all right?" Jack inquired once more, his tone now laced with a biting intensity. Sarah turned to him, her eyes resting on his face for a moment longer than intended before she managed to conjure another smile. "Certainly. What reason could there be for me not to be?" It was the response, so flawlessly delivered, so meticulously constructed, that caused Jack's stomach to churn with doubt. With his suitcase in hand, he ascended the stairs, a sense of alienation washing over him as he entered a house that seemed to have lost its claim on him. The wind outside shrieked through the trees, an unsettling cry that seemed more a harbinger than a mere element of nature. Jack shut the door to his room, exhaling deeply. Yet the question remained in his thoughts, steadfast and persistent. What secrets is Mom concealing? On that restless night, Jack tossed and turned on his bed, struggling to dispel the persistent unease that had taken root deep inside him. The house lay in an unsettling hush, interrupted solely by the soft whistling of the wind as it wove through the branches beyond his window. He found himself unable to articulate the reason, yet the gaze in his mother's eyes during their earlier encounter lingered in his mind, an unsettling presence that refused to fade. She seemed to be concealing something, a burden of a secret far too weighty to bear by herself. Overwhelmed by his restlessness, Jack cast aside his blanket and rose to his feet. The hour hand hovered just shy of midnight, yet he felt no concern. His legs propelled him forward, almost as if possessed, navigating the shadowy corridor with an eerie autonomy. An unseen force seemed to draw him toward the weathered storage shed in the backyard, a relic of a time when he and his father stashed away items that had lost their place in the home. The wooden door groaned in protest as he nudged it ajar. Within the confines of the room, the musty aroma of mildew and dust permeated the atmosphere, yet Jack remained largely oblivious. He retrieved his phone, the beam of its flashlight slicing through the shadows, illuminating the chaotic stacks of aged boxes piled high. With a deep exhale, Jack entered and started to rummage through the boxes. He found himself uncertain of what he sought, yet an instinct whispered that the answers resided within this place. His hands glided over the remnants of childhood. Forgotten toys, weathered school books. Before finally resting on a small wooden box, hidden away in the deepest corner, shrouded in a heavy veil of dust. The box appeared to be a relic of the past, its rusty lock clinging on by a thread. With a swift motion, Jack seized the screwdriver that rested within reach and deftly pried it open, the sound echoing with a sharp snap. Within, he discovered a pile of time-worn, discolored sheets meticulously creased. Correspondence. He picked one up, instantly recognizing that the handwriting was not his father's. As he unfolded it, a weight settled in his chest, and he began to read the first line. My beloved Sarah. The letters were penned by Michael, the closest companion of his father. The initial message appeared harmless, merely offering words of encouragement and solace to Sarah during Jack's father's absence on business. Yet, as he delved deeper into the pages, the tone began to transform. The words took on a deeper resonance, growing increasingly intimate and personal, suggesting that Michael was not merely a friend, but something far more significant. Jack felt a surge of anger as he read the next line. Sarah, you have consistently illuminated my existence. How I long for a world where circumstances align, allowing us to genuinely pursue our deepest desires. His gaze locked onto the words. His hands quivered, and a searing pain shot through his chest. He continued to read, every letter piercing the wound further. These were more than mere love letters. They stood as testament to a connection that transcended limits. One letter even hinted that the affair had persisted during the lifetime of Jack's father. What could possibly be the reason for these letters to be concealed in this place? Who had placed them in this box? Michael or his mother? Jack clutched one of the letters with fervor, his thoughts swirling in a tempest of inquiries. Was his father aware of this? Could this be the cause of the tragic accident that took his life? Jack's emotions churned in a tumultuous tempest of shock, anger, and betrayal. His mother, the figure he had always held in high regard and relied upon, now appeared before him in a completely unfamiliar and disconcerting manner. He felt an overwhelming urge to rush upstairs, to confront her directly, to demand the truth, to compel her to unravel every deception she had hidden from him. Yet, a different facet of his being lingered in uncertainty, questioning whether he was truly prepared to confront the reality before him. As the beam of his phone's flashlight glided over the disordered stack of papers, it illuminated a tiny slip that had slipped free. This was not among the letters. The note was hastily scrawled, its jagged handwriting betraying the urgency of its creation. Jack remains blissfully unaware of the truth, a reality that only I hold the power to unveil. A shiver coursed through his body at the sound of the words. Did Michael pen this? Or perhaps his father? Jack's fingers clenched around the wooden box, his heartbeat echoing in his ears. He could no longer endure the confines of the shed. He craved the fresh breath of freedom, a moment to gather his thoughts. Yet beyond that, he sought clarity. The mysteries contained within this box could no longer stay hidden. No matter the price, he was determined to reveal the truth, even if it required dismantling all his preconceived notions about his family. The following morning, as Jack clumsily navigated the kitchen, preparing his coffee, a sharp knock on the door reverberated through the unsettling silence of the house, causing him to startle. Who might arrive at this late hour? The sky beyond the window wore a muted shade of gray, as delicate snowflakes drifted down, cloaking the road in a soft white embrace. Jack placed his coffee mug gently on the counter before striding toward the door. As he swung the door open, a tall figure clad in a long brown coat and a dark scarf loomed before him. His face bore an air of familiarity, yet Jack found himself unable to pinpoint where he had seen him before. "Jack," the man spoke, his voice rich and inviting, yet tinged with a subtle unease. "Your growth has been remarkable. You don't remember me, do you?" Jack's brow furrowed as he scrutinized the man's features once more. In that moment, everything fell into place. It was Michael, the dearest companion of his father. The man who had once graced their family photos, now a mere ghost in the tapestry of their lives following his father's passing. "Is that you, Michael?" Jack inquired, his tone laced with astonishment. Michael offered a subtle smile, one that lingered just shy of illuminating his eyes. "It is I. I happened to be nearby and decided to drop in to check on how you both are faring." Just as Jack was about to reply, Sarah emerged from the living room. Her presence transformed everything. As her gaze fell upon Michael, her body tensed, and the slight, strained smile that graced her lips barely concealed the surge of discomfort that flickered across her features. Jack noticed how her eyes flitted between Michael and the ground, deliberately steering clear of his own. "Michael," Sarah said, her voice attempting to maintain steadiness yet betraying a hint of tremor. "What brings you to this place?" Michael arched an eyebrow, his tone nonchalant, as if her question had caught him off guard. "I simply wanted to reach out and see how you both are doing. It has been quite a while." He hesitated, his gaze fixed on Sarah with a depth that Jack found impossible to understand. "I concluded that the moment has come for us to engage in a dialogue." Jack remained motionless, his gaze flitting back and forth between Michael and his mother. The air crackled with tension, so dense it felt as if it could be sliced through with a blade. Sarah's discomfort, the quiver in her voice, the manner in which she averted Michael's eyes. None of this felt right. Jack had never witnessed her behavior in such a manner, not even amidst the most awkward of circumstances. An unseen thread of secret seemed to linger in the air between them, poised to break at any moment. "Jack, might you go upstairs?" Sarah said suddenly, her voice blending urgency with authority. She faced him, her expression teetering on the edge of desperation. "Michael and I must have a conversation." Isolated. Though it was the very last thing Jack desired, he gave a reluctant nod. "Very well," he replied, his voice cutting, the words lingering with a sour aftertaste. He ascended the stairs to the midpoint, yet rather than proceeding to his room, he paused at the landing, huddled in the dim corner where every word reached his ears. "You shouldn't have come here," Sarah said, her voice low, almost a whisper. "You're aware of that?" "Sarah, you cannot continue to evade this," Michael responded, his voice steady and resolute. "I can no longer maintain the facade that nothing ever transpired. It is imperative that we confront this challenge head-on." "There's nothing to face," Sarah nearly shouted, though she swiftly tempered her tone. "Do you not grasp the situation? The end has come. The end has lingered for quite some time now. So, what is the reason you still possess the letters?" Michael's question struck with the force of a thunderclap, leaving Jack momentarily breathless. You did not set them ablaze. You chose not to discard them. You concealed them. Do not attempt to convince me that they hold no significance for you. Sarah hesitated to reply. The ensuing silence hung in the air, thick and stifling. Jack felt the relentless pounding of his own heartbeat echoing in his ears. Correspondence? Were they discussing the ones he had discovered the previous night? Are you referring to those authored by Michael? His heart raced, fingers clenching the banister as he struggled to comprehend the words that reached his ears. You don't understand, Sarah finally said, her voice barely above a whisper, compelling Jack to lean in closer to catch her words. Hurting Jack is not an option for me. He remains blissfully unaware, and I intend to preserve that ignorance. Yet the truth will reveal itself, Sarah, Michael declared, his voice imbued with a subtle fervor. He will discover the truth, whether it comes from your lips or mine. Jack experienced a sensation as if the very breath had been forcefully taken from him. His breath became labored, every word from Michael and Sarah settling like a weight upon his chest. Though he had yet to fully comprehend the sounds that reached his ears, one truth stood out unmistakably. The secrets they concealed had the power to dismantle all he believed to be true about his family. Jack emerged from his concealed refuge, his heart racing with such intensity that it seemed poised to explode from his chest. He reached his breaking point. Michael's words resonated in his mind, sharp and piercing, twisting deeper like a blade with each repetition. The truth shall reveal itself in due time. It was time for the truth to emerge. The words he had just caught in the air set ablaze every nerve. Within him, a tempest of fury and bewilderment. Mum. Michael. What on earth is happening here? Jack's voice sliced through the atmosphere as he entered the living room, his gaze icy and unwavering, locked onto the two of them. Sarah gasped and whirled around, her complexion drained of color, her features locked in a state of utter terror, as if she had been thrust into an endless abyss. In contrast, Michael stood motionless. His dark eyes shifted toward Jack with a measured, unhurried motion, his expression revealing nothing of surprise. It seemed as though he had been anticipating this very moment. Jack, it was unwise of you to eavesdrop. Sarah faltered, her voice quaking and unsteady. Do not suggest that I feign ignorance. Jack's voice erupted into a shout, heavy with rage. I discovered the letters, the ones penned by Michael for you. And now I find myself listening to the two of you discuss the essence of truth. Someone needs to provide an explanation immediately. Michael inhaled deeply, his eyes fixed unwaveringly on Jack. He is aware, Sarah. It's time to stop concealing the truth. No. Please don't, Sarah cried, her eyes wide as she turned to Michael, her voice filled with desperation. It is not permissible for you to disclose that to him. Are you unable to share that with me? Jack released a laugh that was both bitter and hollow, a sound that fractured beneath the burden of unexpressed feelings. Then who will be the one to tell me? Mum? Will you continue to conceal everything as you have in the past? Michael advanced with care, lifting his hands in a sign of tranquility. Jack, pay attention to what I'm saying. The words I am about to share may not be easy for you to digest, yet it is essential that you are made aware of the truth. Jack squinted, his voice laced with rebellion. Proceed, Michael. Astound me. Michael hesitated, the stillness lingering oppressively, as though he were meticulously selecting his forthcoming words. Your father figure. His demise was not the result of an ordinary accident, I take full responsibility for what happened. The atmosphere in the room grew dense, laden with the gravity of the revelation. Jack stood still. His breath halted in his throat, his eyes expanding in disbelief as he gazed at Michael. His lips stirred, attempting to shape words, yet silence prevailed. I tampered with the brakes on his car, Michael admitted, his voice a hushed whisper, heavy with the weight of his remorse. I never intended to take his life. It was meant to be. A cautionary note. I wished for him to cease. I never anticipated it would escalate to that extent. With a sudden burst of energy, Jack surged ahead, seizing Michael by the collar, his hands quaking with fury. Do you believe that severing his brakes served as a cautionary message? You took my father's life. You removed him from my life, from my mother's embrace, and now you stand before me, feigning innocence as if this were merely an error. Jack, cease this at once. Sarah let out a piercing scream, her tears cascading down her cheeks. It's more complex than it appears. With a powerful shove, Jack freed Michael and pivoted to confront his mother. His voice trembled, laden with sorrow. Not straightforward? I remain indifferent to the complexity of the matter. I am simply curious about how you could allow him to return here after everything he has done. Sarah wept, her whole frame trembling as she collapsed onto the couch. Jack, I was unaware. I was unaware that he had taken that step. When I finally discovered the truth, the moment had passed. My intention was to shield you. I don't need your protection, Jack roared, his voice cracking under the heavy burden of his sorrow. I sought the truth, Mother, and now I find myself questioning the trustworthiness of both of you. Not that one. Not you. Not a soul. Michael remained still, his expression set in a rigid mask. Jack, I have erred gravely. A transgression beyond redemption. Yet, I find myself unable to reverse it. I'm not seeking your forgiveness, yet it's important for you to understand. Your father was aware of the connection between me and your mother. He yearned for closure. Yet, I refused to allow that to unfold. Jack staggered backward, his breaths quick and ragged. Michael's words struck him with relentless force, breaking apart the delicate fragments of his history. All that he believed he understood about his father, his family, his very existence, seemed to be disintegrating right before his eyes. He gazed at Sarah, her form curled in on itself, shoulders trembling with the weight of her tears, before turning his attention to Michael, the man who had stolen from Jack the one he held in the highest regard. Get out of my house, Jack said, his voice low yet brimming with an undeniable rage. Leave at once, before I lose my grip. Michael locked eyes with Jack, the silence stretching between them before he finally nodded in agreement. In silence, he pivoted and strode toward the door, the soft thud of it shutting resonating like a definitive end to the turmoil he had set in motion. Jack held his ground, his gaze fixed on his mother as she succumbed to the burden pressing down on her. Jack lingered on the doorstep, his fingers clenching the wooden box brimming with aged letters, as though it were the final link to his father's memory. The snow descended with increasing intensity, the fragile flakes landing on his coat only to transform into chilling droplets as they melted away. The air outside hung thick and oppressive, a jarring difference from the sense of liberation he had anticipated upon stepping out of the house that had ceased to be a sanctuary. He cast one last look over his shoulder. The house appeared unchanged, yet to Jack, it had transformed into a hollow facade, teeming with deception, hidden truths, and the lingering specters of yesteryears. Sarah lingered in the doorway, her face marked by tears, pale and her eyes encircled with a deep shade of red. Not a single word escaped her lips. Perhaps she understood that no words could repair what had been shattered. Jack sensed her gaze resting upon him, yet he refrained from returning it. Any pause would merely draw him further into the depths of despair, endangering to engulf him entirely. As he approached his car, a subtle sound emanating from within the house halted him abruptly. The door creaked open, revealing his father's study. The one room in the house that had always been off-limits to Jack. He stood still, a deep crease forming on his forehead as his gaze darted to the window of the study. The curtain fluttered gently, hinting at the presence of an unseen figure lurking within. "That's impossible," Jack muttered under his breath, a shiver coursing down his spine. The door had remained sealed ever since the passing of his father. She claimed that her mother had never laid a finger on it. Yet that creak, that delicate flutter of the curtain, it simply couldn't be attributed to the wind alone. Is it possible? Jack gripped the box with increasing intensity, his heart pounding in his chest. A fragment of his being yearned to stride back into the house, to swing the door wide and face whatever lay in wait within. Yet, there existed another facet of him, one that was weary, fragmented, and yearning for liberation, that longed to depart and never glance back. His thoughts whirled with a myriad of unanswered questions. What other secrets lay hidden in his mother's silence? What other mysteries lie hidden within this house? In that room? He inhaled deeply, pushing the swirling thoughts to the back of his mind. He had to depart, at least for the time being. The vast expanse of the cosmos. The passage of time. That was the key to unraveling the complexities of it all. The wooden box in his hands felt oppressively heavy, as if it bore the burden of all he had just discovered. It was, however, the sole anchor in this moment, the last thread linking him to his father. As Jack slid into the driver's seat, he shut the door with a forceful thud, the sound reverberating through the quiet of the snowy night. A profound void enveloped him as he gazed through the icy glass of the windshield. He found himself adrift, uncertain of his destination, unclear on his next steps, and at a loss for how to start piecing his life back together. Yet, there was one truth he held with unwavering certainty. The letters had yet to complete their discourse. The last letter, a fragment of his father's unfulfilled thoughts, perhaps contains the elusive key to the enigma. With a turn of the key, Jack ignited the car, the engine's growl shattering the stillness, and he drove away from the house. The echoes of his past and the life he once embraced slipped away, leaving only the snow-laden path unfurling before him. Yet, his thoughts lingered on the subtle sound of the study door slowly creaking open. Could it have merely been the wind? Or could there be something deeper yet to be unveiled? As the car's tires carved their path through the untouched white snow, questions swirled in Jack's mind, persistent and unyielding, like echoes from a past that would not fade away. He was certain of one thing. The tale had yet to reach its conclusion. Eventually, he would confront it all, every lingering truth, regardless of his preparedness.